What's up, y'all? And it is your girl, Chanel from Complex Simplicity. I haven't done a vlog in a very long time. It's really been a couple of days. I'm just being dramatic, folks. But I wanted to do a vlog. All week I was so engrossed in the New Edition biopic, which I thought was amazing. And I blogged about that most of the week. But I wanted to end the week with definitely giving you a vlog about, yes, one of my more controversial, serious topics, right? I like to balance things out on Complex Simplicity. And so today I was talking with a coworker regarding marriage and how some of us men and women perceive marriage. What is our idea of marriage, right? Because for some of us, it's as if we feel like it is our end-all be-all. It is our true ticket to extreme happiness in life. For others of us, it may be that we're dodging it, we're blocking it because we don't necessarily see what is so important about such a union, and it kind of shapes and molds our perspective on marriage. It also has a lot to do with how we grew up. Did we grow up with parents who were happily married? Did we grow up with parents who tolerated each other? Did we not grow up in a household with parents who lived together and or who were married at all? And so, I was just expressing my thoughts and hearing my coworkers' thoughts on this topic. And I said, you know what? This is definitely vlog worthy. And I've said this before on the website. I was with my husband, who was my boyfriend at the time, for several years before we got married. We might have been together for pushing 8 years, right? And so, of course, around the 4th and 5th year, I started getting that itch. Us ladies, we get that, where it's like, when are we getting married? Why aren't we married yet? What are we doing? And a lot of what I didn't realize is that when I thought that I was ready to be married, I wasn't. Now, I grew up with parents who were married. My parents made 35 years in 2016. Won't he do it? Thank you, God. I witnessed parents who were happily married, but who were realistically married too, right? So, my view on marriage, and I'm a Christian as well, all of that kind of shapes and forms my perspective about it. And it probably was the Christian thing especially that I was like, okay, it's been about 6 years, what's going on here, right? Because, when you're a Christian, a lot of times you're bred to believe that, you shouldn't really be courting or dating for a long period of time. You should be abstinent, right? You shouldn't be engaging in sex and all that kind of stuff. And so, of course, in my mind, it's like, what are we doing here? But at the same time, I definitely, in hindsight, realized that I wasn't ready to be a wife when I thought that I was. And a lot of times I tell my fellow single people, because I know it's a lot of us out there who are dying to be married. It's like highly ranked on our list of priorities, our bucket list, things to do in life. Some of us feel like we've truly made it once we've gotten married. It could be a self-esteem thing, who knows? But a lot of times, I find that we can tend to have a very skewed, not accurate view on what marriage really entails. It's not, it does have its fairy tale moments. It has its romantical moments. It has its times where you're just like, oh my goodness, like marrying you was the best decision I ever made, right? We should ultimately feel that way, but marriage also has the other side, which is the reality where we're like, this is kind of hard at times. And I always say, prior to getting married, it helps if you know who you are, if you have a good grip on what your own personal issues are, things that you need to work on in your life to grow. It helps if you are able to compromise. You're able to kind of put your selfish feelings aside for the greater good of the marriage, the relationship. We all have selfish needs, or, that's just a part of what it is, and but it's being able to put that aside for the greater good of the relationship, the marriage. It's also, being able to learn how to love your spouse, your significant other, the way they need to be loved. Sometimes how I may need to be loved may not always be the same as how my husband feels he needs to be loved. So as women, sometimes we're built to be like, it has to be what we need. You're not meeting my needs. It has to be, I'm the woman. This is how it has to be. But guess what, ladies? We have to be willing to love our husbands like no other and love them how they need to be loved. What are we bringing to the table? It can't just be what they're bringing to the table. We have to have some valuable things, qualities, attributes that we're bringing to the table as well. When I thought that I was ready to be married, I wasn't really realizing and zoning in, Chanel, work on your finances. Financially, you don't make the best decisions. You're not always fiscally responsible. That was a harsh truth that I had to recognize within myself, because in getting married, you want to be able to build with one another. My husband and I, prior to marriage, we had conversations about if we ever, where we saw ourselves 5 years into the marriage, 10 years into the marriage, 2 years into the marriage. Did we have dreams of wanting to buy a home? Did we have dreams of having children? How many children do we want to have? Career-wise, what were his thoughts on me being a working mother versus me being a stay-at-home mom? There's a lot of conversations that need to be had. Being a good wife is not just about cooking and cleaning and giving them loving when they want, right? Being a good wife, I think, is also about having the emotional wherewithal, the emotional maturity, and the emotional capabilities to be able to navigate through different things marriage brings, right? There are times when you have to be that warrior for your husband. You have to be that strong person in his life. You have to be able to be there to lift him up, to build him up, to nurture him, not in a motherly way, but like in a wife way, to be able to be affectionate and nurturing to your husband. Then there are other times where we need to be able to be like, all right, this is the reality of the situation. Honey, this is what we need to do. You know what I'm saying? We also need to be able to allow them to fulfill their role as being the husband, right? There's a lot of things that come with it. We have to be able to communicate. If I'm struggling with communicating in my day-to-day world, my day-to-day moments with people, family, friends, loved ones, whatever, co-workers, then how am I going to be able to communicate in a marriage? Communication is everything in a marriage. From what I've learned, and I'm speaking on a perspective of someone who's been married for over 2 years, from someone who grew up in a household with married parents who is still married, praise God, from someone who works in the child welfare, social work field where you see a lot, which is human dynamics and how people are, how we are, flaws and all. So I'm coming from a myriad of different perspectives, right, and experiences that I've witnessed in life. And so communication is such a strong and important aspect to have between both parties. Also having some level of tough skin, I must say. It can't always be where we can be the ones to dish out when we're not feeling happy, when we feel like our needs are not being met, when we see certain things that we want to change in our spouse. We have to also be willing to hear and receive when your spouse is telling you what he or she doesn't like about you, if they're where they feel the marriage is, if there are areas that they're not happy. We have to be able to take that too. It can't just be us saying you. We have to be able to take such lovingly constructive, I don't want to say criticism, but we have to be able to really take and understand the needs that our significant others and spouses have, even if it means that we're the problem at times, So it's a lot that goes into it. Like I said, marriage is a beautiful thing. I love that I'm married. I love my husband. And I wouldn't trade anything for the world with where I am right now in my life. However, I don't want us to live in a fantasy world either. Marriage is real. It requires a lot of emotional maturity, maturity in general, spirituality. It requires a lot. Me, I'm a Christian, so I'm always going to come from the perspective of God has to be a part of your marriage, the nucleus of it. That can be a hard thing at times to keep him in the nucleus, but that is an important thing to do. And, not giving up, And so this is why I always say I love to encourage my single people out there, because I don't want you to go into something blindly. There, like I said, there's some of us who feel like getting married is like the goal in life and that it's going to be our end all be all of happiness. Not necessarily. If you had issues in your relationship prior to marriage, 9 out of 10 times you're going to have those same issues. Marriage does not change things. At least I don't believe marriage changes things. If you had these issues prior, you're going to carry them into the marriage. If you had personal issues within yourself that you haven't worked out, if you're still struggling with knowing who you are, loving who you are, and all the things I always talk about in the website, you're going to have a hard time in marriage. If you have a hard time with compromising and not being selfish and putting your needs before others, you're going to have a hard time in marriage. You know, if you have an issue with communicating effectively in a way that is not demeaning or where you're bottling up all your feelings inside, then marriage is going to be a challenge. So that's why I say, while you're waiting on the Lord for him to shed light as to who it is he has for you, please continue to work on yourself. I believe that working on ourselves is something that should happen all the time anyway. I don't believe that we ever get to a phase in life where we're where we should be. I think we should always be constantly checking in and trying to work and grow and figure out what it is that we need to work on within our own lives. You know what I'm saying? And so please be encouraged and have a realistic view of marriage. Don't get me wrong, it has the fantasy moments, it has the romantic moments, it has those moments that just will make you feel so good, but it also has difficult moments, challenging moments, where you're both being pushed where you're being pushed to grow, and the goal is to grow together. You know, I think also making sure that you marry the right person plays a huge part in it as well. Still, no, even when you marry the right person, you're going to have your ups and downs. It's just the name of the game. It's just the territory of marriage, right? But it's two imperfect people trying to work together the best they can, you know, for the greater good of the relationship and for the marriage. And so please don't give up, you know, trust in God, believe. But at the same time, I would say, let's be realistic about things and work on ourselves and be prepared to be able to love someone the way they need to be loved, as well as continuing to love ourselves the way that we need to be loved. And so I hope that this was encouraging, empowering, enlightening, whatever you want to call it. You know, take it for what it is. And thank you for continuing to rock with me at complexsimplicity.com. We love when you come visit. Keep on coming by. And of course, as I always say, until next time, good night.